Hi everybody. I've had a lot of people asking me about how I get some really wonderful relief images in tooling foil, metal tooling foil. So I thought I would take a little time today and show you how we get it started. I started with a drawing, and I'm going to use something really simple. I hope you can see it. This is a simple fish on a piece of newsprint paper in pencil. The paper was taped down onto my piece of foil, and I traced over the design, and I could use a pencil to trace it over, or I could use a ballpoint pen if my design is complicated and I want to make sure I can see all the details. I want you to note about the design, there's no little patterns in it. I hope you can see that. There's no small patterns or textures in it. I'm going to leave them all out for later. And everything is an enclosed shape. There's not a fin with an open end to it. I made a closure at the edge of it. It's very important that you want to use shapes that are enclosed shapes, lines that touch other lines, and keep it fairly simple. Tight corners and sharp edges are going to be much harder to do in tooling foil. So once that was done, I took that off of here. And I did that, by the way, on one layer of felt. I took it off of there, and on a second layer of felt, I traced it again with a sharp pointed tool. And this is basically just a wooden stick with kind of a blunt point on the end. You want to make sure that whatever you're using isn't so sharp that you're going to puncture a hole in it. But on two layers, you're going to go through and just retrace all your lines to deepen them. And again, I've already done that. I also want you to notice that on the back, I've written my name. I don't know if you can see that or not. But that's important because as you start working, it's very easy to get mixed up between the front and the back. And once you start doing that, you're going to be in a lot of problems. Now, once I've got the drawing done on here, I'm going to cut it out about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch away from the edge of my design. And if my design has sharp corners, I would round them. Tooling foil can be sharp, and I don't want any cut fingers or blood on my table. So once I've got that cut out, if I'm doing this with students, I make sure that as soon as they've got it cut out, that their scrap is thrown away, and I will do that. Now, the edge might still have some potential for sharpness, and people worry about that, and a lot of people have told me they tape the edges. There's absolutely no reason to tape the edges. Here's what you do. You put it on your flat surface, on my table in this place, in this point. Can you see that okay? And you take a flat edge tool. I've got kind of a spatula shape. You can actually use a popsicle stick. I've got a plastic spatula, a wooden spatula. You want it to be flat, kind of like the end of a screwdriver. And you're going to go all the way around the edge, flattening it out right onto the table. Working from the front, just really flattening it down. And as you work on the rest of the project, you will repeatedly go back and do that flattening, just to make sure it's still nice and smooth and flat. And I think I'm all the way around. Once you've done that, it's really not that sharp. Really not that sharp. Now my next decision is to decide what I want to push out and what I want to push back. And again, I have no texture or patterns in it yet. Don't worry, we will do them later. But for this, I'm going to push out this little circular edge that I have built into the design. And I'm going to push back the inside, the negative space of the image. I'm going to push out the fish. I'm going to push out the bubbles, and I'm going to push out his eyeball too, but leave the edge of the eyeball poked in. So anytime I want to flatten something out, like the area behind the fish, remember that you flatten on a hard surface, you push out, or you make your relief grow deeper on a soft surface. So again, this has a flat end like a spatula, and I'm going to go around my fish and start doing just a little bit of that. It's too big for some of these areas, so I can take something like this pointed tool and use the flat edge of it to go around and flatten down. Now, I'm not going to do very much of that right now. I'm going to also show you how I start to poof things out. I've got a couple layers of felt, at least 2, and I'm going to turn this upside down so my name is visible. And I'm going to use something with a rounded end. It could be just a plain old popsicle stick. It could be a wooden tool with a rounded end. Or a plastic tool with rounded ends. There's various available and they're not expensive. And you're just going to start pushing that into the felt. And it will immediately start to poof out. The felt is pretty soft and has a lot of forgiveness, so you can push pretty far. So I don't know if you can see, but that's already started to poof quite a bit over there. Occasionally, I want to go back and use my flat tool, if I can find it. There we go. That's not it. I'll use my popsicle stick and redefine my edges, reflatten my edges, or I can use my pointed stick to gently redefine my edges. You're really going to want to go back and forth and back and forth. I want that fish popped out deeper, so I'm going to fold my foil, my felt another time, and I'm going to use my rounded edge tool again, and I'm going to again do some pushing in my fish. I haven't started pushing anything else on here yet, just the fish, and just that one part of it. I don't know if you can see how much that has already poofed out. Again, I would go back and start flattening around it and poofing. I'm kind of changing my idea about this eyeball. Do I want it to poof out, or do I want it to push in? I think I'll poof out the outer part of it and push in the inner part. Now, pushing in means making it flat against a flat surface. You can tool things by pushing them in the other way, right, with felt underneath it, but then it's going to start to emerge from the back and you're not going to have a flat piece, and it's going to be much more difficult if you want to mount it on a flat surface when it's done. So I recommend anything that you want flat, like the center of that eyeball. I'm just going to push in like that. And then I'll come back out and turn it over to the back and start poofing out the eyeball around it. And I will have to flip it. And I'm using kind of my pointy tool sort of on its side now. Back and forth and back and forth. So I'm pushing out that eyeball. I've got it on 2 layers of felt. I want that eyeball really poofy. So now I've gone to 4 layers of felt by folding it. There may come a time when you're doing that, if you get really aggressive, where you punch a hole in something. You probably won't be able to see it. If you do, just take your fingers and just sort of push the parts together. I actually do have a little tiny hole there, and be gentle around it when you work the areas around it. And I'm going to flatten down around just here, and I'm going to re-flatten the line around the whole eyeball here. And so it's a case of going out and in and out and in, and figuring out what tool works the best for you as you start to push out. Can you see that relief happening? I'm going to stop here for now and work on finishing it up a little bit, and next time I'll show you how I add the designs, all the texture, and how I also can add black ink to antique it. In the meantime, remember, you want to keep flipping it back and forth. When you're working from the front, work on a flat surface, your table. When you're working on the back, to make it push out, work on a soft surface, and I've found nothing that works better than felt. I know other people use newspaper. I don't think it gives you as much padding. I know someone who uses a mouse pad, but for me, the best will always be this. Now I want to show you one more thing before I turn you off. Remember how I had my name on there? It's almost all worn off right now from my rubbing. So I'm going to want to take my Sharpie and put it back on again, because it's very easy to make a mistake and push something in the wrong direction. I hope that all made sense to you folks. See you soon.